when you're holding on to things so tightly, when you're holding on to that task so tightly that only you can do it, just it's taking you away from something that truly you can only do, right? So, and it's taking you away from being as productive as you need to be in order to scale.
Hello, Profit First entrepreneurs and thought leaders. I'm so excited today because we have a special guest. Her name is Monique White. Monique is an attorney, a registered nurse, a certified professional coach, international speaker, and Amazon bestselling author, and also the founder of Triumph Services LLC. So she's got a lot of experience in a whole lot of different areas. Fabulous speaker. She's over 28 years of combined experience in health and business services, law, and public safety. Originally, she founded her company as Triumphant and Free in 2017, and she helps individuals overcome and push through obstacles to discover and embrace your unique talent, skills, and ability to be able to enjoy life the way that God had promised, providing joy, hope, love, peace, and power in their lives. The company was organized in 2018 to Triumph Services LLC, which is a consulting and coaching firm. And today I'm excited to introduce Monique because today we're going to talk about the things that hold entrepreneurs that are scaling back. So what is holding you back from either being, a 7-figure business, 8-figure business? What are the things that are holding you back from being able to achieve the things that you want to achieve? Hi, Monique. Welcome to our show. How are you?
Hello, hello. I am well, Suzanne. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you too. I mean, this is a very deep topic, right? Because, there's the law of the lid. There's the law of the lid of how far we can go and push ourselves forward. And a lot of it, as you say, it starts with mindset. So before I begin, tell me a little bit about how you got into this work, what made you spark that? How did you discover this?
Well, I originally started out, as you said in my bio, I originally started out as a nurse and then transitioned into law. But the common theme throughout all of my journey, throughout all of my careers, was this passion to help others. And it was something that I was doing without even knowing, mentoring, precepting, taking younger lawyers, younger nurses under my wing. And so it was kind of like just this flawless transition into the coaching space, this teaching training space. One of the things that's not in my bio is I also serve as an adjunct instructor. So for me, it was a, flawless, seamless transition. It's what I've been trained to do, what I've been purposed to do. I mean, because all of that sounds really nice, but at the crux of it, at the core of it, I didn't start out that way. I started out as an unmarried pregnant teenager. So I build on my experience and I use that experience to inspire others so that they can elevate and that they can scale and they can step into their next.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing. That is wonderful. And so, you know, I'm curious, in terms of like things that hold us back, things that keep us from moving forward for accomplishing our dreams, especially as scaling entrepreneurs, right? There's a point that, I see consistently where people get in their businesses where they just cannot go to the next level. They'll get more clients, they'll lose a client, they'll get some more clients, lose a client, and they end up in this spiral of being able to just kind of just end up in this round circle of staying in the same place. And
Mhm.
I like to get your thoughts on what are you finding are the things that hold entrepreneurs back from being able to propel forward and get out of that cycle?
Well, what I'm finding is when you're getting stuck like that, you have to take time to really sit back and assess what is the root issue. Because and this is where mindset comes in, because as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. I'm a faith-based organization, so I bring everything back to that, because your thoughts drive your actions. So if you are doing and you're scaling but you really don't believe, we can say we know, but the thing is, do you believe and are you convinced? Then your thoughts and your actions are not going to line up. So we end up getting stuck in that one place and we end up doing these self-sabotaging behaviors that prevent us from moving and scaling upward.
Amazing. So that's interesting. You're saying that if we don't believe, we go into this cycle of self-sabotage. What does that look like? What does that look like? How do you know that you're in that cycle? Tell me a little bit about what that is.
Well, let's just take one self-sabotaging behavior. Um, Superhero hero syndrome is what I call it. When we're trying to serve everybody all the time. We were not meant to serve everybody, and nor should we want to, because everybody's not for us and we're not for everybody. But what happens then when you can't say no for whatever reason that's arising from, manifesting from, you end up taking on too much. We're not delegating as we should, and we're spreading ourselves too thin. And what happens is we can't be the best us. We can't be as productive as we need to be because we have taken on too much.
Oh yeah.
That's just one self-sabotaging behavior.
I can imagine that too. And that's interesting, that superhero syndrome where we're taking on too much. What causes us to do that? What causes us to take on too much?
Well, sometimes it can really arise from different things. It can arise from our environment. It can arise from our culture, the way we were brought up. And it can arise from a fear. At the crux of it is a fear, a fear of disappointing someone, a fear that there will be backlash. And it's kind of similar to people pleasing, right? But except the difference between superhero syndrome and people pleasing is that the root cause arises from within. We don't want to disappoint someone, or we're feeding our own ego. We get addicted to the accolades. There's some psychological, emotional need that ends up being met by accolades, acknowledgement, gratification. Also, it can come from something as simple as we were all never felt that we were empowered to say no, which is a whole different which is a whole different conversation. So we need to get to, in order to overcome that, first of all, we have to understand it and why we're doing that.
That's very deep. That's very deep. You know, one of the things that I get from a lot of entrepreneurs is, especially when they're hiring and they're growing with their
Mhm.
number of people, right, is there's that nobody can do it the way I do it. You know, nobody can do it as good as me, they say. And I guess that's a form of superhero, right? Because if nobody can do it as good as you, the problem is the one that will always end up doing it is you, right? So
Exactly.
how do you overcome that? How do you overcome that when that happens, when you get into that trap of nobody does it as good as me? And how do you avoid it, right?
Right. Well, the bottom line is, again, that's the form of ego, thinking that it can only be done by you and your way. Like I tell nurses, as they go through, they're paired with senior nurses, for example. I'll use this as an example. And nurses may do things two different ways. It doesn't necessarily make it wrong. Yeah, there are some hard and fast rules, but everybody has a different way of doing it. And as long as the result is reached, that's what we really want. And on top of that, it's a form of control. When you're holding on to something so tightly, I tell people, when you hold on to things so tightly, God can't give to you what He's trying to put in your hand. When you're holding on to things so tightly, when you're holding on to that task so tightly that only you can do it, just it's taking you away from something that truly you can only do, right? So, and it's taking you away from being as productive as you need to be in order to scale. So once you realize that you're doing it, then you need to ask yourself, am I really needed for this? It takes being really intentional, and it takes being aware, having the self-awareness that when it comes up that A, you're doing it, B, you need to ask yourself, am I really needed for this? Is this something that can be delegated to somebody else? Is this what you were purposed to do? Or are you feeding that ego? or is something preventing you from letting it go? Because at the end of the day, it ends up being a distraction. And what's the entrepreneur's greatest commodity? What's their most valuable thing? Their time, right? You just don't have time to do everything. So the first strategy is you recognize it for what it is. You can't fix something that you don't recognize. Second is to ask yourself, are you really needed for this task? Is this something that needs your attention? And is this something that only you can do? If the answer is no, then be comfortable to delegate it to somebody else.
I love that. I love that. I just think of my own personal experience. It was like years ago, um, in the entrepreneur experience world. And, I could not give up billing. I wanted to do billing. And, and the problem was billing takes a lot of time. You got to reconcile it, right, to
Mhm.
what should have been charged to what it is, resolve any issues that are out there. And, and I knew exactly where everything was. I knew exactly how to reconcile it. And it was comfortable doing it, right? It was comfortable because I didn't have to talk to anybody. Being introvert, I got to keep my head down, which is always fun. And and it took a lot of really just getting to the point that I had no time to do it, right? And I had no time to really get to the client work that I needed to be and being able to help my clients have more time to talk to them more, help them solve problems, that it really forced me to give that up, right? And bring on my office manager and start having her do that. And, it just took a lot of, if I keep doing this, I'm not going to ever have time to do something else, and just like you said, just realizing, there's nothing in your business that only you can do. Eventually somebody else will be able to do it. You just have to release that and let them do that. And that's very good.
Right.
So so Monique, what else out there holds entrepreneurs back from scaling? What are the other things that hold us back?
One of them is perfectionism. Everything just has to be perfect. I have a colleague, Keita Williams, who says, imperfect action will trump perfect action every single time. And it's so true. We're held back because we want and it's a very human emotion. It's a very human, especially entrepreneurs, right? Because we're really driven. We want things to be perfect. But the problem with that is, no one will ever be perfect. We tend to be our worst critics, and things aren't getting done because there's only so many hours in a day because we're so focused on things being absolutely perfect. So perfectionism is the other self-sabotaging behavior. We have to be comfortable with being human.
I love that. That's a good way to look at that. But Monique, are there events where perfection is important? Are there times that perfection is important, um or is there never really perfection not important?
Well, first let me say, I don't think anybody will ever reach perfection because we're all living, or we're supposed to be living, in a state of self-reflection. There's always something that we could do better. We put a product out there, put a service out there. We're always going back and analyzing to how can we do this better. So, I think it's a goal to strive for, but the problem arises when you get stuck there. And a lot of these self-sabotaging behaviors that I speak about, they arise, and the problem is getting stuck there. They started out for a very legitimate purpose in the beginning, but some along the way, we got stuck. So, you know, perfection, it has its place, but as I said, give yourself permission and grace to be human.
I love that. That's very good too. And I know one of the things that we talk to our clients in our practice too is about having internal controls, right? Like I said, nobody's going to be perfect. There's going to be good days, tired days, bad days, outright bad days. And it's about having compensating controls in place to capture things when they're not good, right? So having maybe a team member review someone else's work and a supervisor doing a review, and or quality controls, even in manufacturing, right? To make sure that at the end of the day, things are going to happen, something's going to get stuck there, that widget's not going to come out perfect, but having that quality control procedure to capture those mistakes when that happens too makes it better too, from a perfection standpoint, and that too with that. And then also, like you said, there's just times, like if say you're doing a marketing campaign, right? And you just can't get that ad to look perfect. I'm trying to be a supermodel, but can't get that supermodel look in that picture. And sometimes you just have to go. At the end of the day, it's getting it out the door, right? Getting it out the door, getting the message out the door, and not waiting for that perfect to happen.
Exactly, exactly. And the beauty of it all, which, when you're striving to perfection, you kind of miss is you can always make adjustments. You just got to, step out the boat, so to speak. You just got to do the work. You just got to put it out and, and test it. If you don't get it right, that's okay, because you can always go back and you can always adjust. It's in your control. None of these behaviors that we talked about or that I talk about in my speeches, none of these behaviors are outside of an individual's goal. And that's the beauty of it.
I love that. That's really good. And so when we talk about changing our mindset, right? Stop focusing on or expecting perfection in every category, or starting to relinquish some of those controls, especially over the smaller items where there are set processes and procedure. And folks, that's what you want to do, right? You want to start to establish processes and procedures for everything new, right? Whether that be videotaping them, documenting what those processes are, so that you can have a goal of passing that down, right? I have a friend that says that her goal in life is to fire herself from her job, and so she's always looking, whenever she accomplishes one task, she looks at systems and how can I systematize this so that somebody else can take over this task for me next time, so that she can eventually fire herself from that job, so that she can work on the next level in her business, and really really be able to do that. How does changing our mindset and focusing on, I guess, moving up, right, by delegating outward to our team members, how does that increase our business profitability?
It increases it, because, like I said before, you're going to be more productive. You're going to be more focused. When you are taking too much on for yourself, being a superhero, not being able to delegate, always, being so hard on yourself and getting stuck trying to be perfect mentally, you are, all these things have physiological effects in addition to psychological effects. You're causing stress on yourself. Your mind is not clear. It can't be, because you're going, 15 million directions at one time. You can't focus. Because you can't focus, you can't be productive. You're causing stress. So, as I said, the physiological effects of that, you start, high blood pressure. You're not eating right. You're not getting enough sleep. All these things affect your productivity. You can't be creative if your mind is fuzzy. You can't be creative if you're sleep deprived. You can't be creative if you got all these health issues going on. I say to people, one client I said to, who had big dreams, but wasn't really taking care of themselves. And I had to bring it back to them, the nurse inside of me reared its head and said, everything is not going to matter if you don't have your health. So being able to let go of the reins, to be able to delegate effectively. And I think that's a big word that needs to be attached to delegation. Delegate effectively, being able to move forward and not get stuck in being things being perfect, and just taking action, being able to let go and make those adjustments to things that we put out there aren't serving us anymore, or aren't serving us the way that we need them to serve us. All those have a direct impact on the profitability of your business.
Oh yeah, definitely. Being able to have a clear head, right? You can't be creative and serve in your best self, right? If you're tired, exhausted, or just confused from overworking, right? With that, you just can't be.
Right.
It's interesting. I always tell my entrepreneurs, if you are wanting to build a seven-figure business or multi seven-figure business and go to that next level, what you started with, the skill set that you started with, and the team that you started with is not going to be the team that's going to take you there. And
Thank
once you hit a 7-figure business, it really is about the power of your team. And I don't know of many businesses that make it to 7 figures without relying on their team, unless you're like a celebrity. But even then, you've got agents that are representing you, right? They may not be employees, but you've got somebody booking you on different shows and podcasts and that type of thing. So even then, they have teams. So to get to that 7-figure mark, you will have to rely on the power of your team just to get there. Monique, if I could ask you if there are any tips, any advice that you would leave our entrepreneurs with, and it can be personal, it can be business, what would that piece of advice be?
um, my biggest piece of advice to entrepreneurs is trust who you are, whose you are, and why you are. You started this business for a reason, for a purpose. You started out with a vision that God has given you, that God has trained you for, prepared you for. There will be hills and valleys. There will be times where you come up against obstacles, but understand that you were given the vision because you have the ability to achieve the vision. So trust who's, who, and why you are.
I love that. That's good. It's about trusting and having confidence in who you are, because that's exactly where you're meant to be. That is absolutely beautiful. Thank you, Monique, for that. Monique, as we're closing out our show for today, how can our viewers and our listeners contact you so they can work with you to learn more about mindset and really taking their businesses to the next level?
They can contact me on my Facebook business page, www.facebook.com/triumph, TriumphSBCS. That's Triumph SBCS. And there is a scheduling button on that page. Also, I am opening up my next masterclass, which they can register for that at www.triumphsbcs.com/transform hustle.
I love that. And I will go ahead and put that link in our show notes so that you guys can contact Monique and register for her masterclass, as well as schedule time to speak with her further regarding this subject. Thank you, Monique, so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I pray that I have helped and blessed somebody.
Thank you.